welcome to 2020 Design Trends by UXPin. Today on our interview, I'm joined by Cheryl. Cheryl, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Couris. I am currently a UX design manager at Cisco here in Seattle.
Could you tell me more about your, like work experience or education, or maybe some other stuff that you're doing? Because I know you have like side projects as well.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So I started actually as a traditional sort of graphic designer. So I've done a lot of like marketing and advertising campaigns. I moved to Seattle and sort of jumped into the world of UX because I really wanted to solve problems, not just sell stuff, but also solve problems for users. So I started my UX sort of career at Microsoft. I spent a year at Google, and here I am at Cisco in Seattle, as I mentioned, working on some really cool collaboration apps and sort of what we call the future of how people work.
Perfect, thank you. I know for a fact that you also teach UX in Seattle. So because we are, today we are going to talk about design trends, but I think education and like the landscape of the design jobs is something that is going to change for sure. So my question to you would be like, what are the top trends for education, like design education for, like for starters?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I'm super passionate about teaching. I am currently a UX instructor here at the School of Visual Concepts in Seattle. And it's a really great program for people who want to break into design. A lot of people are changing careers, so coming from another field. To your point, I think the landscape of design and the design careers and the opportunities is changing. And I think more than ever, we're seeing people kind of have this passion for problem solving and sort of connecting with people. And so I think gone are the days that you have to absolutely be a formal design trained person to be in the field. I think we're seeing folks coming from a variety of different industries and bringing that experience with them. And that really, to me, represents like user-centered design, right? I mean, I teach a lot of former accountants or baristas or folks with really great sort of experience dealing with people, and they make really great designers. And so I think really the landscape is opening up and it's becoming more and more available and accessible to everyone. And that's sort of why I got into teaching and why I just think it's really exciting. But I think it's out there and it's no longer sort of only if you have been formally trained, although that's fun too. But I think everyone sort of has the opportunity now to put on that like human-centered design thinking cap and start to solve problems in that way.
Yeah, well, I think it's so much easier now than, for example, like 10 years ago to get like proper education in UX, because whenever I talk to people in the UX design who have like 10 plus experience, they didn't like have the opportunity to have the education. And now we not only have like tons of resources on the internet, but also schools like and teachers like you.
Yeah, it's super fun, right? I think that's what makes better products and us better designers is like we're all bringing this like different facets and different experiences to the table, and that makes sure that we're designing with everyone in mind and not just sort of a subset of users. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I already see the landscape changing, and I'm excited to kind of see where it's going to go after that.
Do you think there are some, like jobs connected with design or UX that are, like emerging just in 2020 that we never heard of before?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's funny because on my team, I really try to curate a talent set that's like product design as a whole. Now, certainly that's a sort of job title that we all know, but I'm really trying to expand that beyond just pushing the pixels, but to also include writing the content and the strategy in that way. And then what does it look like from the website all the way to downloading the app to using the app to the help and support. And so I think job titles are actually may or may not change. It's more, I think our scope is growing. I think as people sort of expect now from beginning to end, like the whole experience, I really sort of challenge folks that I work with to think about it in that way. Again, like I think job titles come and go. There's probably a whole subset of them up and coming that I don't even know about yet. But for me, it's all about kind of that scope is growing. So making sure we're thinking about it like from the beginning all the way to, how anyone would experience a brand or a product in other ways, not just kind of using it.
Yeah, so kind of like holistic approach to design.
Totally.
Would you, as a person who is hiring designers as well, do you have any advice for like new designers or people who are just like trying to find their first job?
I love this question because this is sort of my, I'm carving out this as a specialty because I'm so passionate about giving everyone the opportunity to get their foot in the door, right? It's really hard, especially if you live somewhere here in Seattle or in other cities where it's so saturated and you really have to stand out from the crowd. And so if you're trying to sort of get one of your first jobs in UX, my biggest sort of thing that I preach is sort of telling a story. And so that's your story as a designer, of course, right? It's not just about the work, but it's how you present the work and how you talk about the problems that you're solving and the solutions. And, at the end of the day, I think the secret is like your solution almost doesn't matter. It's more about how you approach the problem and your design thinking and how you unpack the problem. That's something I work with students all the time. I think they get so focused on, did I choose the right color for the button? And is the design itself right? And it's like, actually, again, that can come and go. I'm more interested in like how you picked apart the problem and did you put the user's needs first and tell me that story? So I really work with folks to make sure that their portfolios and their websites and their presentations and all of that tells a story, not just about them, but sort of the users and the problem and all of that. That to me is like the difference between just pushing those pixels and then again kind of creating that holistic journey or kind of story. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, so I get you because I kind of observed this change in like the approach of designers as well, because it used to be like, okay, I'm a designer, I'm an artist, right?
Yeah.
And now we're just more user-centered, and like more we are more focused on empathy and like mindful designing, etc. Right?
To be fair, that was me. Of like, I'm an artist, I'm a designer, but I think we're starting to see.
No judgment.
I know it was all of us 10 years ago, right? Like I feel like that was it, but I think really we're starting to see design democratized in that, like, I often design with my PMs and my engineers, and yes, we hold the skill set that maybe produces the artifact to look at, like the mock-up or the wireframe, but at the end of the day, like it truly is like a team effort. It's coming from everywhere, and so it's less about, again, I'm not necessarily a formally trained designer or that's not my job title, but like that good idea comes from anywhere and you tell that story as sort of a squad. And that's been working really well for the team that I'm on. And I hope to sort of carry that with me wherever I go.
Yeah, and I'm super excited, like watching how it will change in the future, because we're looking at Generation Alpha coming into the picture, people who don't remember the times without touch screens. So that's, like if you ask me, that's going to change a lot. Do you think that's something that new, like young designers are ready for?
It's crazy. So full disclosure, I had to look up Gen Alpha. I am truly like an elder millennial, was like, I think I know what this is. And you're right. So I have 2 young children and they will not remember what it's like not to have technology available to them. We all remember having to sit through commercials on TV even, and like My 4-year-old just wants to fast forward right through those. So it's a very different world with technology. Totally. It's a very different world with technology. And what really excites me about sort of the next generation is like their expectations of technology are so high and they're also fearless. I mean, I watch my parents interact with technology and oftentimes they're kind of scared about what will happen and what they'll do, right? And so I think the next generation is not scared. They are fearless and they're going to really expect technology to take us to sort of the next level, even beyond kind of what we see today. And that to me is like the Wild West. I think there's so many opportunities and they're not afraid to push it because it's available to them. And again, there's having no boundaries in that way is a really good thing because I think we're going to push it. One thing I also think that'll be sort of a change we're starting to see is sort of design's role in like designing for good and with ethics and sort of changing the world, right? I think we're seeing that's really important to everyone, but particularly younger generations, I think are more aware of it than maybe we were or our parents were. And so it's really cool to kind of think about how design will complement like changing the world for good. That's really exciting.
Yeah, like when you say fearless, I see my daughter, and when she asked me like a question, and whenever I'm like, I don't know, she's like, look it up.
Exactly. It's like they have no concept of like, boundaries with technology. The expectation is that it's there and it works for you and we're not scared of it. And it's really amazing to watch. I think particularly if you see really young kids interact with technology, they're already so fluent. And so you can imagine how they're going to really push it into the future. It could be scary if it wasn't so exciting. So actually I'm going to go with exciting. Again, thinking about how it can sort of like design for good, I think we'll be in a really good place.
Yeah, exactly. Because they have like the basics of technology, and there's nothing like particularly new to them when it comes to technology. So they can build on top of that, like with ethics and because we have to somehow balance the development of technology, like AI and stuff, with being human and more inclusive in the design field too, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny, I mean, like I didn't even get my first cell phone till like high school. And so like if you're already thinking about like kids and how they're sort of going to take the technology available to them today, which is already amazing, and start to really make it work to like make their lives better, it's going to blow our minds. And so I'm really sort of interested in seeing where that goes. I think it's exciting. Again, like we do need to balance sort of that ethical piece of it and AI and all of that. My hunch is that sort of the younger generation already has that in mind. I think with the landscape and the world today that's already kind of out there. I think we learned as we went, and so we kind of had some bumps, and they will too, but it's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of inclusive and accessible design, I'm thinking because like for Gen Alpha, for the kids, like voice search is something obvious, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also we didn't anticipate that when we kind of like developed it, but it's also it makes things easier for seniors as well. So that's the irony of when we go like so fast forward with the technology, but also kind of think having that in mind for the technology and design to be accessible, we kind of like achieve things that we didn't even think of, right?
Amazing. So I'm glad you brought that up because at my time at Microsoft, I was involved in some of the accessibility work, and it sort of put this new lens on it for me in that like, yes, you could think about designing a solution for someone who maybe doesn't have their extremities or has only one arm, but then you're also solving that problem for maybe a new mom who's holding a baby and can only use one arm, right? And so shifting that to sort of like, hey, you're designing for one, but you're solving that problem for so many people in a variety of circumstantial or permanent sort of circumstances. Like it's it really is amazing. That sort of really shifted my mindset and really opened it up to like, hey, this is not such a targeted problem we're trying to solve. This is a very sort of common use case in many ways. And so when you sort of solve for that one and think about it in terms of many, it's really powerful.
Yeah, well, I hope this particular trend is going to be an evergreen to,
I
like,
think so.
this balance.
I think so. I think we're seeing sort of inclusivity, and I would say that across the board, right? That's everything from like body positivity to other aspects of it as well. I think we're starting to see, again, unlike sort of maybe when some of us grew up, like it's very much out there and accepted, and that self-love and that acceptance is very I don't want to say it's on trend, but it's sort of coming up as sort of something that's the norm. And I think that's really, really important. Again, that's probably why the younger generation is already in better shape than maybe we would have been, because they're thinking about that and how to sort of solve for those types of things. Whereas like that was not really on our radar until, more recently.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, like this sort of empowerment is going to be trending for not only 2020, but 2020s and further.
I love it. Yes.
So thank you very much, Cheryl, for joining our interview and for taking your time to answer my questions. Well, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of comments.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This was so lovely.
Thank you, and let's stay in touch.
For sure. Thank you.